Hey everybody, I am back and I'm ready to talk about some more books. The books that I read last month, as well as the books I'm going to read this month, and I know it's June 6th at the time of this recording. I'm very far behind, but as I mentioned, I just got back. I was on vacation in Sweden and I spent a little bit of time in Denmark too. Had a great time, so thank you, Scandinavian people out there, for having really cool countries to visit. So let us move on to what I read. So rather than making this redundant, because I tend to group these videos together versus making them separate. And I know a lot of people do it separately, or some people do half of it, other people do the other half. Anyway, I'm talking too much. But I'm gonna give you like little brief reviews, I guess, as I talk about this. So the first book that I read was Project Ventus by Kieran Westwood. Wow, the light is really blowing that out. I apologize for that. But he's a YouTuber. He's an editor as well as a writer, of course. This was a thicker book. This was, man, what was it? Clocking in at almost 600 pages long. So this one took me a little bit of time. I really enjoyed it. It's a multi-POV novel. It's science fiction, part thriller, part psychological thriller, part I don't really know. It's kind of difficult to classify, and that's what I love, because I feel far too often books tend to, and I know this goes against all writing advice out there, or I should say marketing advice out there if you're a writer, but so many books feel like they fit into these small niches, right? Because readers, as we know, unfortunately, they want they often want samey stuff, the same stuff over and over and over again. Where I really appreciate it when novels break those boundaries, they break those molds, they try new things, they experiment with mashing multiple genres together to the point to where they're difficult. I swear I can talk, guys. Difficult to classify, and this book is difficult for me to classify. The good news is, though, I'm gonna have Kieran on the channel. I'm interviewing him this Saturday, so in a few days. And I'm going to ask him all about it. We're going to talk about, hopefully he has time to talk about his YouTube career, his editing, what got him into writing, as well as really dig deep into this book without spoilers, of course, because I want you guys to read it. I don't want to spoil the whole thing for you. But yeah, Project Ventus, enjoyed it. I can't say I've read anything quite like it. I did write a review on Amazon and Goodreads, I believe, where it felt one part Michael Crichton and one part Emily St. John Mandel of, what did she write? Station 11. Station 11, and another book that I didn't care for recently. Not that I did not, I'm not attributing that opinion to Kieran's book, okay? Just sort of like stylistically, thematically, I guess. The Sea of Tranquility, and you can check out the review I have there. But because, like I said, it's multi-POV, it's dealing with multiple timelines, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I think you know what I mean. If you'd like to also have me answer any questions or ask Kieran any questions about this book or what he's got going on, drop them down in the comments below, because that is going to happen very, very soon. Okay, so the second book I read was, where is it? Let me grab it. Here we go. It is The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias. I actually finished the review already, so you guys know my full thoughts. I will link it up with a card up above if you missed that one. This was my friend Britton's. Man, I'm just throwing stuff around on the table over here. Britton's, some okie dude, he's on YouTube. This was a book that he did not like at all. And I was curious, he did a giveaway. I won the giveaway, thankfully. So I got to read it. And boy, oh boy, hell of a ride. Anyway, if you want to know my full thoughts about it, check out the card up above. And the third book I read last month was The Invincible by Stanislaw Lem, the Polish writer. This book was written in, I think, the 60s, so the golden age of sci-fi, you might say. It was translated into English in the 70s, I think, if that's correct. But anyway, one of you guys out there requested it, as when I was asking for great sci-fi reads. That one came up. I'd never read Stanislaw Lem at all, and so I thought it would be a good opportunity to do so. It's a shorter book. I'm going to do a review of it, but I enjoyed it overall. It has a very adventure-like, pulpy quality to it. There's things I liked, things I didn't like, as always. But it's very much a... unfortunately, it's afflicted with a problem of ideas over characterization. And you guys know out there that I'm big on characterization. Really, characterization is what kind of gets me through a book often because what interests me most about fiction, I believe anyway, and I'm sure this changes as the time goes on, but it's how people experience things, right? It's understanding different point of views, it's understanding different responses to stimuli. I know this sounds very scientific, but I think that's what I like because you're only in your own head, and for me, fiction is a great way to explore the minds of others, even though they are fictional people. But more on that to come. I think it's worth your time, has some flaws, but I believe a lot of those flaws are the product of the time it was written. And that gets me to think more about how difficult it is to read something that inspired other things. It's kind of like I always trash on this movie because it's an easy one to go to, but Citizen Kane. The movie that so many people, Orson Welles, Citizen Kane, they love it. They say it's the best thing ever. I saw it when I was in college, and obviously, I know I'm old. I'm not that old, though. So it had been out for a long time. And that book just that movie just technically didn't work for me. And so it's really difficult sometimes to go back to earlier work because you're generally more attached to the modern executions of those things. And generally, because they are modern executions of those things, they're more accessible, they feel more relevant. But anyway, I will get more into that in my review. The final book I read, I was trying to get some more in, but I was traveling, and I know that seems like I should have more time to read, but no, I was out and about. The final book I read was actually, you guys out there suggested it. Actually, Falcon Reads, Mr. Carol Wainwright out there was the one. And then I put a poll out, and it was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. That was kind of a surprising one. I wasn't sure that many people knew about that novel. And so, again, that was surprising that all of you guys out there, or the majority of you guys out there, wanted me to read that. So I did read it. I did enjoy it. It's interesting. I know Carol, he mentioned that Tarantino's doing some interesting things on the page. I'm not sure if he saw the movie as well. So I saw the movie way back when it came out. Didn't have much of a recollection of it. I remember thinking it was okay. As many Tarantino films are, he's got some great ones and he's got some kind of okay ones. I fully put this one in the it was kind of okay, the film anyway. And so I was curious to see what the book was going to bring because legend has it anyway that he was writing this book first to develop the movie. And that's exactly what it feels like. So I'm not going to give you all of my thoughts here. I'll put that in the review for sure. But right now I'm rewatching the movie just to kind of get some context because I think it's important to see what what came of the book, right, when it came to screen, and compare the two a little bit, just in case people out there have seen the movie and aren't sure if they should read the book or vice versa. Before I move on to what I'm going to read this month, I'd like to give you a little recommendation. It's actually a TV show, and you guys, if you know me out there, you'll know that I have very, very little patience with TV shows because often they are written to spec. They aren't sort of a work that was inspired and just had to be written down. The story had to be told. They're often, based on, analytics and demographics. And I always joke with Helena, if you're listening or if you're watching, Helena, about products versus true art. Ironically enough, though, last month I talked about the show Fallout, which I enjoyed. So this month is going to be my recommendation for you to check out is A Baby Reindeer. It's a TV show. It's a mini series, so it's a limited series, meaning it's one and done. It's about 7 episodes, I believe, based on a true story. The story of the writer. So the guy who experienced this stuff, he wrote it, and it was a great show. Every once in a while, Netflix does these things where they actually make something great. I feel like that's all streaming services now, right? It's pretty rare to find some good stuff, but it's well acted, well written, well shot. The funny thing, we were talking about this a lot on my Discord server too, and I always kind of analyze things from a storytelling perspective, like how you approach story, how you reveal the characters and the plot, and et cetera, because I write, of course, and I have to constantly stop myself with stuff like this because it's a true story. It's based on a true story. Granted, I'm sure he embellished some things and changed some things here and there, but I guess the core of it is true, allegedly. And it's just funny because I think even from a narrative standpoint, if this were a fictitious piece of work, it would definitely have worked. There's some weird choices that are made, but I think they totally work once you get to the end of it. and highly recommend it. It's not for everybody though. It's dark. I don't want to call it a dark comedy, but it starts off kind of funny, and then it gets kind of brutal, and then it gets really brutal. For those of you out there who may be squeamish or sensitive to certain material, Netflix itself even warns you with a big banner of white text before that particular episode. And I think even before the show begins. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a beautiful character study. And I know I'm talking about it like it's fiction, even though it's nonfiction. Highly recommend it. Well written, well acted, well shot. It's just well made across the board. So highly recommend that one. If you haven't caught it yet, go check it out on Netflix if it's available in your area. So let's talk about the books I plan to read this month of June. So just like always, because I'm late to these things, I read one of them already, and that book is A Psalm for the Wild Built. It is by Becky Chambers. Really interesting cover. So this book, I'd seen it on bookshelves plenty of times. The cover is very striking and has this kind of Asian art style where there's a robot. I'll put it up here on the screen, and there's a person with a teacup. I'm looking at it right now by this wagon. But anyway, I picked it up, I flipped through it. I didn't know much about it, but it's one of those books that just, again, this always happens. I'm sure you guys out there have that same thing where a cover will capture you and you'll pick it up, maybe flip it over, maybe flip through a few pages, and then you don't read it. That's exactly what this book was. And then a friend of mine, he brought it up out of the blue. I didn't think he would bring it up. I don't know him as a reader. I guess he's kind of an acquaintance. He said, "Hey, I read this book you might like." And I was like, "What is that?" And he mentioned this. I was like, "Holy shit." So to me, it's a sign. Not that I believe in signs or fate or anything like that, but I thought it was about time to give this one a go. I read it. I enjoyed it overall. I thought it was it's a very cozy. I don't want to call it near future, but it's a science fiction book. But there are some definite issues I had, but it was an extremely short read. I kept feeling drawn to the book. It was interesting because at the beginning of the book, I was kind of turned off a little bit, and I'll get into that in the review, but then I stuck with it. I was curious about it because it won the Hugo Award. Not that that means anything anymore, at least in recent years I've come to find, but anyway, curiosity got the better of me. I read it. I'll give you my full thoughts and review. The second book I am going to read this month, and this is one just like A Psalm for the Wild Built. It's called Lamb. It caught my eye while I was over in Sweden. This book was sitting on a shelf, face out, just like this, like you see it. It's not particularly dark or creepy or anything, or things that generally catch my eye. It's the word lamb. And those letters, if you can't tell, are kind of created with plant life, flowers and succulents and grass and moss and things like that. So, of course, who came to mind? Well, Jeff Vandermeer of the Southern Reach fame. And I think I read something on the cover where they were saying it's part Vandermeer, part, and I said, okay, well, I got to check this thing out. I didn't buy it right away, though. I first saw it in Gothenburg. I was hanging out with my buddy Mats. Hey, Mats, if you're watching this, how's it going? At the science fiction bookstore, which you can see here, maybe, right there. Go visit the science fiction bookstore in Gothenburg or Stockholm. Those are the two locations I'm aware of over in Sweden. It's such a beautiful store. They have RPGs, they have manga, they have fiction, of course. Then I was in Stockholm toward the end of my trip, and I went to some random bookstore off the side of the road. This book again was staring at me from the shelf, and this bookstore was a regular bookstore, not a sci-fi bookstore, so most of it was in Swedish language. But this one, I said, you know what? I gotta do it. So on the very last day, right before I left for my flight, I went down to the science fiction bookstore in Stockholm and finally got it. Luckily, they had a copy because I didn't see it on the shelf originally. But I apologize. I'm rambling, but I'm excited about this one because it's got a cool little, flap. It's a paperback, but it has these like bookmarky things going on. I know I'm amused by stupid stuff. It feels good. That's important to me because you guys know I mostly read ebooks, but like it has like a nice bendy quality. It's not like the shitty mass market paperback, cheap paper. This is put out by a company out of England called Dead Ink, who I'd never heard of whatsoever. It's supported by the Arts Council of England. and funded by the UK government. So I'm interested. It's a small press. The strange thing is, this is not available on ebook. I actually found it on Kobo, so Kobo has it. Amazon doesn't have it. It's hard to find. It's hard to find. I think it's an import. I think that's why it's so difficult. And I'm not sure why they only released it in paperback. There's no audiobook. There's nothing. Maybe because it's a small press. They don't have the funds. But this book, I don't really know what it's about, or I didn't know what it's about. I know what it's about now. It sounds like it's kind of steeped in tragedy. There's a man who loses his life, and his son is left over to kind of pick up the pieces. And really, here's what kind of got me: is a visceral story of collective memory and moss-coated horror. Moss-coated horror. What the hell is that? I'm finding out as we speak. Lamb asks us how far we'd go to protect those we love and how intensely we are bound to those who have come before us. So far, I've read, what am I, 70 pages in? What I love about this book so far is that it is, it's so intimately tied to character, trauma, emotion, all of those things. It's not just spooky for the sake of being spooky like a lot of horror stuff is. This really, to me, feels like the horror, again, is a metaphor for life, for loss, for, as it said, protecting your family. How far would you go, to do this stuff? But and the metaphor is, it's moss horror. It reminded me of, if you guys out there have ever seen Creepshow 2, maybe, no, wait, is it Creepshow 1? I can't remember if it's 1 or 2. But it's an anthology movie, and there is an episode starring Stephen King, nonetheless, where an asteroid it lands in his front yard, and he touches it, and he starts growing moss on him, and he turns into this big moss monster, and he can't deal with it, and so he kills himself at the end. Not that this book is anything like that, but there's a definite body horror, biological elements to it. Again, that feels very much like Vandermeer's work in Southern Reach, particularly the movie version, Annihilation, because, the girl, if you've seen it, one of the women at the end of that starts growing weird stuff, kind of becoming part of the environment, this alien environment. So I'm curious to see what moss-coated horror is. I'm getting a taste of it. I'm just curious to see where it leads and how it all makes sense, and if this book adds up to anything at all. Because, like I said, just like with A Psalm for the Wild-Built, I was drawn to it. The cover pulled me to it. And I guess there's not much else to say, other than I'm enjoying it so far. It's doing some things. I mentioned this on my Discord server earlier, but there's a lot of exposition in the first chapter, which to me is a bad thing to do because you want to capture the reader's attention, but it works in a way. I'll talk about it in my review. And another thing about this book, before I talk about the others, is that it seems to be relatively unknown. I did a quick YouTube search for the name of the book as well as the author. I found nothing. And like I said, it's not available on ebook or Kindle anyway, or audiobook. So it seems like it might be this weird hidden gem that this small imprint, Dead Ink, has found. So I don't know. Matt Hill also has some other books. I think there's science fiction / horror as well. So anyway, looking forward to continuing with Lamb by Matt Hill. Okay, the third book I'm going to read this month is one that I've been putting off for some time. Timo over on my Discord server first brought it to my attention because he's a man of few words with his criticisms. I absolutely love his book reviews on my Discord server. I keep telling him out there, if you're watching, Timo, I'm going to do this, I swear. I'm going to put them on my YouTube channel, or I don't know. I keep telling him, like, you need to create a YouTube channel that has like 30-second book reviews and just say these lines, because they always make me laugh out loud every time. They're harsh as hell, but he liked this book. He really enjoyed this book. He says it's better than Lord of the Rings, and that is The Broken Sword by Paul Anderson. According to Amazon, it was published the same year as The Fellowship of the Ring by, of course, Mr. Tolkien. This one's very much steeped in Norse mythology. And it's short. That's really what grabbed my attention. So according to Amazon, it's 252 pages long. And to create a mythical, fantastical story that is rivaling the epic that is The Lord of the Rings, I am extremely curious to find out. So we'll see how that goes. If I have time, the last book I'm going to, not the last book, but the one before last, because you guys need to pick what I'm going to read as my last book. Ken Greenhall. I've talked about him a lot on this channel. Hang on, I got another one up here. Wait, where is it? Here it is. Okay. So Ken Greenhall. I discovered him with Hellhound, and there's a review on my channel, a very old review where I'm sitting in my garage, so it's kind of weird. But anyway, Hellhound, I love this book. I saw the movie called Baxter, a French adaptation. Not as good as the book. This book, crazy stuff. I've read a few of his other books, Childgrave and Elizabeth, both good. However, they didn't quite match Hellhound. So I picked this book up, The Companion. He wrote this a very long time ago, of course, because he's no longer with us. But I was curious about this one because most of his stuff, well, I shouldn't say most of his stuff, there's a few of his books that are out of print. This book is only available in paperback, and it's got this cool like 80s VHS style artwork on it. This reminds me so much of being a kid going into the video stores, picking a movie based on the cover. And that's exactly how this feels. I mean, even the back, it feels like that font, something about it. It's also a short book. It's about a caregiver, it sounds like, but she she has comforted them, cared for them, and loved them, period, to death, period. I just for fun, I read the first line. This is what, or actually the first paragraph, I think. I'm sure you can see why this caught my attention. But chapter 1, who I am and how I live. Someone, a neighbor or even a well-groomed person on a television news program, may have told you lies about me and my father. That's the first line, so that really hooks me. They want you to believe that we are deranged or even inhuman, but I assure you that neither of those things are true. I hope you let me tell you the truth, for I am sure you were brought up, as I was, to believe that truth creates understanding. Such a beautiful first paragraph. This is why I like Ken Greenhall, everybody. You can already tell that we're setting up an unreliable narrator, perhaps, or maybe she is the reliable one. I'll find out if I get to this one, but it's just little over 200 pages. We'll see. We'll see. Either way, I'm going to read this very soon. So the fourth book, because I like to do a book a week, everybody. That's my pace. That's up to you. Because just like I did last time, if you guys have a suggestion, something that you would want to see me review on this channel, read and review, of course, let me know the title down below. Feel free to upvote that stuff, because what I'm going to do is I'll put the first five titles, because Amazon or YouTube polls only allow a total of 5. Last time I had 6, and unfortunately I had to add that to the top comment, which I think impedes visibility. So anyway, if there is a book you are dying for me to read, you highly recommend, that is not 1,000 pages long, please, because I'm not that fast of a reader. Let me know the title and the author in the comments. And in a few days, or I guess I should say, once I get the first 5 suggestions, so you got to be quick, I'm going to put that in a poll, or those in a poll, and then I will throw that up on a YouTube post, and then we will see where the votes take us. And so it's kind of a cool little mystery thing, because I know all of you guys out there aren't 100% paying attention to every video I put out or every poll I put out. So last month's was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. What is this month's book going to bring? The final book I'm going to read? Perhaps we shall see. So thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Thanks for watching as always. And I look forward to your so juicy suggestions in the comments. Again, like I said, let me remind you, I will put up a poll with the first 5 only. Once I get that, we'll let it run for a week or so, or I guess however long until visibility drops off the face of the earth. And I'll read that one, and I will review that one. Okay, I'm done. I know this has been rambly. I know it's been long. Let me know what you're reading down in the comments below. Anything that has disappointed you, pleased you, just come out of the blue and surprise you. I'd love to hear about it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.